Hello and welcome to Versus Mode,
the show that settles all those who would win arguments you never had the time to have.
I'm your host, Joseph Hunter.
And I'm also your host, Angus Mitchell. And on this week's episode, we'll be pitting Eternal Sonata,
the Japanese RPG epic that takes you through Frederick Chopin's last hours on Earth via a fictional depiction of his delirious dream fever, against Eternal Damnation,
the agonizing punishment inflicted on the souls of sinners left to suffer in the fiery inferno of hell for all eternity.
On each Versus Mode, we like to start with a main difference and a main similarity between our two competitors.
The main difference in this case being that whilst Eternal Sonata is the story of a gang of plucky misfits attempting to protect the balance of nature,
Eternal Damnation is the cautionary tale of why you shouldn't ever have fun, ever.
Viewers should be advised that they will go to hell for any of the following.
There are, of course, similarities.
The most obvious being that both are punishments for the evils of man.
So let's go!
Round 1. Fight!
Eternal Sonata is a video game set in a beautifully constructed world, with massive depth, weird creatures, and a variety of interesting locales.
Eternal Damnation is traditionally set in Hell, the underground dominion of the devil, complete with massive depth, weird creatures, and a variety of horrifying locations that would make your eyes bleed.
That said, Eternal Sonata has a vast variety of worlds and locations, whereas Hell is more just a continuing variation on the themes of flames and unending agony.
Actually, that's not true. Eternal Damnation has 7 unique environments, and that's just the circles. There's also Limbo and the Lair of Satan.
Limbo is quite repetitive.
Maybe, but each of the circles has an infinite number of custom-tailored punishments, whereas Eternal Sonata is limited to the data capacity of your average DVD disc.
That's tautological.
It's still winological.
Fine. Eternal Sonata is set in a world inside the mind of Frederick Chopin, a renowned 19th century composer from Poland.
Hell, on the other hand, was brought forth from the mind of the fallen angel Lucifer, who later became the devil.
I gotta say, if I died today, I would much rather live forever inside the mind of Frederick Chopin than in the fiery depths of hell.
But what about the scenery in Hell? There's all the mountains and the lakes.
Yes, but those are mostly made of fire. Hell doesn't have any of the gorgeous, freaky architecture of Chopin's world.
It has freaky architecture. I wouldn't exactly call it gorgeous, more unimaginably horrifying and made from screaming people, but it has a certain aesthetic charm.
Eternal Sonata has an interesting and innovative combat system that varies depending on whether or not you're standing in the light.
Hell's combat is primarily based around pitchforks. Lots and lots of pitchforks.
That's not exactly varied.
That's not true. They have a wide variety of pitchforks, of all shapes and sizes. They have tall pitchforks, small pitchforks, fat pitchforks, thin pitchforks.
Okay, Angus.
Curved pitchforks, straight pitchforks, barbed pitchforks, serrated pitchforks.
Angus, I get it.
Fuzzy pitchforks, funny pitchforks, pitchforks made from eggshells.
God damn it, Angus!
All the pitchforks imaginable, really.
Eternal Sonata features as a playable character famous composer Frederick Chopin.
Yeah, that's pretty cool if you're into that sort of thing. You know, Hell has this one guy though. Pretty big deal. Goes by the name of Satan.
But Chopin created some of the greatest classical works of all time.
But Satan was responsible for bands such as Metallica, Iron Maiden, and the song Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. So I guess Eternal Damnation wins.
But at least Eternal Sonata has an end point.
Ah, see, that's not actually true. When you sit through one of Eternal Sonata's cutscenes, the inane dialogue and uninteresting characters cause time to move exponentially slower with each passing moment, before reaching a point where, for all intents and purposes, time stops altogether and the game never ends.
So they're both eternal?
Yes, they do not stop. They cannot stop. They cannot be stopped. They have no end, they have no beginning, they simply are.
Then how did I escape?
You didn't. There is no escape.
The animals in the forest never used to be this aggressive before.
By the way, the question you asked me earlier.
No!
You never told me if I answered it correctly. Of course, this is all a story I've created in my head. So
well, that's all we have time for this week on Versus Mode. Next week we'll be covering Giraffes versus the Stanley Cup, hockey's ultimate prize. I've been Angus Mitchell.
Even though people call them dead, they still want the devil to live on.
And that was Joe Hunter. Good night.
One day, the caterpillar asked the snail, "Mr. Snail, you know many things. Could you tell me what kind of shape is the shape of life?" The snail nodded and answered, "Well, Mr. Caterpillar, I think that maybe life is red, like a ripe tomato."